Hey guys, enter the stars. And the Book of Enoch was found with the Dead Sea Scrolls. It recounts the history of mankind, the flood, the fallen angels, and dates back to several hundred years before Christ was born. And actually talks about the 14 species of evergreen trees long before much of the world was discovered. He also describes the 7 major mountain ranges of the entire planet, as well as the 7 river systems and 7 land masses. And in fact, Enoch describes the fact that lead and tin are not produced naturally in the earth, as it states here in Wikipedia. This is tin, and it does not occur as a native element, but must be extracted from various ores, as well as lead, which occurs only very rarely in nature. How did Enoch know thousands of years ago, before any of this was discovered? It's because it's a real book, and Enoch and talked to God, and God shared these things with him. There is much more proof that the Book of Enoch is real versus not real. Enoch knew so much more than we ever give him credit for. And Enoch talks about sulfur, and that the smell of sulfur was produced in association with the disturbance, and that the valley of the fallen angels who led men astray burns under the ground, and through those valleys of the same area flow out of the rivers of fire, which is the molten rock underground, the volcanoes, where those angels will be punished and led astray, those on dry ground. And the waters will serve the kings and the exalted and those who dwell upon dry ground for the healing of the soul and body. This is where sulfur heals the soul and body. Sulfur springs, hot springs. Is this all making sense? How would Enoch have known all this? But it says, but also for the punishment of the spirit. And their spirits are so full of lust that they will be punished in their bodies, for they have denied the Lord of spirits, and they see their punishment every day, yet do not believe in his name. And the more their bodies are burnt, the more change will come over their spirits forever and ever. They believe in the lust of their bodies, but deny the Spirit of the Lord. And the waters will undergo a change in those days. The temperature of the springs will change. And when the angels come up, that water of the springs will change and become cold. So we wait until the springs of the earth go cold. And that means that the evil spirits, the fallen angels, have been released. And you wonder what kind of earth we would live on without all of this fallen angel technology. And I argue that we would live on a much less complicated planet. And it might be even be much easier not to sin. And it says here, the names of the fallen angels who taught men these things, and what they taught them. And the 4th fallen angel was named Penemu. He showed the sons of men bitter and the sweet, and showed them the secrets of their wisdom. He taught the art of writing, and ink and paper. And through this many have gone astray, from eternity to eternity, and to this day. And how did Enoch know that a Penemu, would write on ink and paper? And we still to this day call a pen for that reason. Pen and ink. They taught them how to perform abortions. This is the knowledge of the fallen angels. The blows that attack the embryo in the womb so that it miscarries. And I saw 6 gates from which the sun rises, and 6 gates in which the sun sets. And the moon also rises and sets in these gates. And the leaders of the stars, together with those whom they lead, there are 6 in the east and 6 in the west, all exactly in place. And here we see the gate of the moon passing through the gate of the sun, just as Enoch said it does. And how is this even possible when we are told that our sun is so many more million miles away than our moon? It is because things might not be as we were taught. And it says here, and first there rises the greater light, named the sun, and its disk is like the disk of heaven, and the whole of it is full of fire, which gives light and warmth. The wind blows the chariots of which it ascends, and the sun goes down in the sky, and returns through the north in order to reach the east. I'm going to say that again. And returns through the north in order to reach the east, and is led so that it comes to the appropriate gate and shines in the sky. And in that 4th gate, through which the sun rises in the 1st month, there are 12 window openings, from which, whenever they are open, flames come out. Could that be solar flares? When the sun rises in heaven, it goes out through the 4th gate for 30 days, and exactly in the 4th gate, in the west of heaven, it goes down. And in those days, the days grow daily longer, and the night grows nightly shorter, until the 30th morning. And all of this is verifiable in Wikipedia, you guys. This is the truth, and Enoch knew it. Now I want you to notice, it's not saying that the sun goes around the earth. It's saying that it moves just under the horizon and along it, and comes up in the east, which would mean that our earth is really a disk and not a globe, and that really the sun is what's moving and not the earth. And it is in fact 7 times brighter than the moon, but in size the two are equal. And that is why an eclipse is perfectly a moon covering the sun. And amazingly, the magnitude of the sun versus the moon is exactly how Enoch said it would be. 7 times brighter. We have a magnitude, absolute magnitude of the moon of 35. And when we look at the sun, its absolute magnitude is 5. 7 times 5 is 35. How did Enoch know, with no instruments, no telescope, no way of measuring this? Is NASA an anagram for Satan without the T? The 2020 being next year. Jesus' 2020th year since his birth. And July 29th, the day that Eisenhower signed the NASA Space Act, just so happens to be the 211th day of the year in leap years, with 155 days remaining till the end of the year. And we know that 111 days are after 9/11, the day Jesus was born, and that he was conceived in 3755. And now we know what may have happened in the great deception about our space program that would either prove or disprove what Enoch is saying. And in fact, Enoch calls the planets stars and says that they follow the gate of the sun. This was before they could see the planets with the telescope. And in fact, it is true that all of the planets follow the sun in the ecliptic, along with the moon. They all fall on the same plane, as you can see here. This is simply an amazing discovery. Just as Enoch said it did, before he could ever see Mercury or Saturn, the only star in the sky, the only planet that he would see, would be Venus, and that is the morning star, and that is Jesus Christ. And this is before your eyes. You are watching all of the planets on the ecliptic, followed by the moon, which is on the same ecliptic. The moon that is, we are told, is so much closer to us than the sun or any of these planets. Can you see how we may have been deceived? There are no southern hemisphere direct flights between the tips of the continents in the southern hemisphere, even though the distance would be far shorter. Maybe these southern tips exist near a ring of ice around a disk, which is the planet Earth. 12 total gates Enoch describes, 6 when it rises and 6 when it sets. That's 12 total gates at 30 days each. That gives us 12 30-day cycles, which gives us our year. Then Enoch goes on to talk about the moon, and he says that there's a fixed measure of light given to it, and its days are as the days of the sun. And we know that the moon has a 28-day cycle, and that it follows the sun as we demonstrated in Stellarium, along with all of the other planets on the ecliptic. And when its light is full, it is a 7th part of the light of the sun. We demonstrated that in Stellarium. And he goes on to describe the moon cycle and the phases of the moon, and how, in fact, it doesn't disappear, but the disk is empty without light, exactly as the modern scientists have discovered. Enoch was the first scientist. He was the first to uncover and understand these things, because it was told to him by Uriel, God's angel. And he goes on to explain in much detail the exact path of the moon and its relationship to the sun, as you can see here, and how the moon rose and set in those days. And if 5 years are added together, the sun has an excess of 30 days, and the excess of the sun and the stars comes to 6 days. In 5 years, with 6 days each, they have an excess of 30 days, and the moon falls behind the sun and the stars by 30 days, and the difference in 8 years is 80 days, and all the days that the moon is behind in 8 years are 80 days. And here we have the 88. And finally, Enoch talks about a region above the gates, which the stars that never set rotate, and those would be the far-reaching stars. Again, Enoch is calling our planets stars, and he identified them as being on their own gate along the ecliptic of the sun, which is exactly the truth. But he describes the far distant stars on their own gate, a region that is bigger than all the others, and it goes around through the whole world, and those are the constellations. You guys, this should be a very faith-building experience to know that so long ago we already knew the truth. We just simply need to open our eyes. We'll be delving more into the book of Enoch in the coming days. Take care and be safe.